Hello, Dr. James Bogash, expert in health and longevity, and today we're going to cover a topic I've covered multiple times in the past, and these aren't even new articles, but they're articles that I've come across recently that just, again, highlight that just because we've always done something doesn't mean it's a good idea. And this has everything to do with lowering a fever. It's just what you do, right? Is you have a fever, and so we don't want to be any slightest bit uncomfortable. So we're going to take acetaminophen, Tylenol, ibuprofen, Dayquil, NyQuil, whatever it is, to bring down a fever, because we can't possibly live with a little bit of discomfort. It's so bad that in one study, 91% of parents had given their kids ibuprofen, and these were kids from 6 months to 5 years of age, and of those, 44% of the kids didn't want to take that for whatever reason it was, but 62% of the parents felt that it was okay to force their child to take this the term is antipyretic, thought it was that important to force it on their child. That's how far in society we've come, that we think that it's absolutely required for these kids to have that. And yet, granted, we're not talking about 104, 105 fever, totally different story, but that 99, 100, maybe 101, kids still active, obviously, in that particular study. They're alert enough to, give some pushback on having to take those meds. But so fever, warm and lethargic, different story. But for your average run-of-the-mill fever in kids and adults, society has just drilled us that that's what we do. And yet nobody really gives one thought to whether that's a good idea or not. And I will tell you that the data over the decades has not been positive. And it's very hard to find human data, I think largely because we don't really want to know the answer. There may be studies comparing acetaminophen to acetaminophen to ibuprofen, but never whether or not it's a good idea. Keep in mind that the fever is the body's response. We have prostaglandins. There are different things that are released that drive our temperature up for a reason. Again, the human body has a wisdom that we decide it's okay to thumb our nose at. The body brings the fever up because bacteria and viruses generally don't function better at the higher temperature, and our immune cells function better at the higher temperature. So, kind of makes sense that this is doing it for a reason. We have seen that there have been studies, again, largely we use a lot of ferret models for human respiratory infection because there's some similarities. In ferrets, we see that actually increases length of infection. But the other two things to consider is that what if by taking an antipyretic to bring down a fever, that A, we're more likely to go out and interact with people, and B, it might extend the infectious period by stopping our body from infecting or from fighting off this virus. Though the combination of those two has the potential to make infections worse on a societal basis. And that's what one of these studies, it went through a theoretical modeling, but nobody thinks about the idea that this widespread use of antipyretic therapy may actually make episodes and things worse. We saw this with the pandemic where, gosh, how often would suppressing a fever actually make that infection actually worse? We haven't seen any data on specifically for SARS-CoV-2, but I'm fully confident that if we actually did look at the data, we'd find that suppressing a fever leads to worse outcomes. So we have data that suggests that taking antipyretic therapy will increase the infectious period because it stops the body from fighting it as effectively. We've seen that in chickenpox in kids. We've seen that with influenza. We've seen that with rhinovirus. So that's pretty well accepted that antipyretic therapy makes us infectious for a longer period of time. Then if it makes us more comfortable, then we might be out longer for infecting other people. In the final note on that, this whole concept of asymptomatic spread that started with COVID all started with patient 0 in Germany who was asymptomatic, and she turned out to be positive for COVID and started to be essentially patient 0 until they backtracked and found out that she really was symptomatic, but she was suppressing her symptoms with cold medicines. So this whole blow up of asymptomatic spread and all of that probably started because of antipyretic therapy. Just stew on that one for a little bit. Personally, I haven't taken anything like that in 30 years or so, and it's because I understand how potentially damaging bringing down a fever is. I usually go the opposite direction and work on cooking it. If it's summertime, I'll be outside. We have a barrel sauna, hot tub, or bathtub, hot tub, short burst exercise. Anything I can do to actually bring up my temperature is what I will do when I'm not feeling well. So as always, I will post a link to this particular study in the description. Make sure you like this video, share it with somebody you think needs the information, and subscribe to the channel.